Hello everyone, welcome to another lesson. Today's learning goal is I can solve equations with parentheses and binomials in the numerator. Remember that a binomial is an expression with two terms. An expression with two terms. So an example of that would be 3x plus 5, that has two terms in it, okay? 3x is one term, and 5 is a second term, okay? And remember, terms are separated by addition and subtraction signs that are not in parentheses. So, let's take a look at our first question. Our first parts. To solve equations where one side is not simplified, so if you look at this problem, 5 parentheses 2x minus 3, we know is not simplified, okay? We must distribute to remove any parentheses and use a reverse order of operations to solve for x, or the variable in the equation. So our first one is right here, and we can say that the left-hand side is not simplified. So what we need to do is simplify it by distributing this 5 into both terms here. Okay, so when we do that, we get 10x. This is a negative 3 right here, so negative 3 times 5 is negative 15. So I'm going to write that, negative 15 or minus 15, all the same thing, equals negative 7. And once we've done that, this begins to look a lot more familiar. Again, we're going to get rid of our constant here. First, we're going to do addition. So we're going to add 15 to get rid of this negative 15, add 15. And we have these two parts canceling out. We get 10x. We have negative 7 plus 15, and that is 8. Okay. And then what we're going to do is multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 10. And when we do that, these 10s go away. And we can do some cross canceling. 8 becomes 4 because 2 goes into it 4 times. 10 becomes 5 because 2 goes into it 5 times, so we get that x equals 4/5. And that is our final answer for x. Then we can check it by plugging it in, this x value in right here, and solving using order of operations and seeing if we get negative 7. So let's go ahead and do that. We get 5 parentheses 2 times 4/5 minus 3 will hopefully get us negative 7. So we are going to multiply across here. According to order of operations, we do this multiplication first. So we have 5. 2 times 4 is 8/5. I'm going to change this 3 into 15/5 because, or this negative 3 into 15/5 so that we can subtract later on. This gets us negative 7. We have 8 minus 15 as our next operation that we're going to do. So that gets us negative 7/5. Oops. Which gets us negative 7. Or should get us negative 7. And then we can see that what our next thing is going to do is multiply the 5 and the negative 7/5, which means that we can do some cross canceling because this 5 cancels out with this 5. We are left with negative 7 equals negative 7. Okay. So next, let's try this problem out. Again, what we're going to have to do is distribute. So we're going to have to do 1/2 times 10 thirds. So I'm going to do that on the side over here. Let me just first draw the line down the middle. 1/2 times 10 thirds. And what we're going to do is cross cancel right here. So we get 5/3. So we have 5 thirds x. Then we have to do 1, and that's right here. And then we have to do 1/2 times 3/4. And what we get is plus 1 times 3 is 3. 2 times 4 is 8. All that equals negative 3/2. what we're going to do next is subtract 3/8 from both sides. And so that means that we're going to have to do negative 3/2 minus 3/8. So I'm going to do that on the side again. Negative 3/2, in order to get it to have common denominators of 8, I'm going to multiply this by 4. That makes it negative 12 over 8 minus 3/8. And that gets us negative 15/8. So negative 15/8, we get 5/3 x equals negative 15/8. Then we got one more step to go. We're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 5/3, which is 3/5, times 3/5. Okay, and that means that we can do some cross-canceling here. This 5 goes into 15 3 times. This goes into it once. And so what we get at the end is x equals negative 9/8. Okay, so let's go ahead and check that on the other side. Erase this all. And what we do is we plug in negative 9/8 back into the original equation and solve using order of operations. And so we have 1/2 times 10/3 times negative 9/8 plus 3/4, and hope that gets us negative 3/2. And what we can do then is we're supposed to multiply first, and we can do some cross-canceling, a lot of cross-canceling. 3 and 9 becomes 1 and 3. 10 and 8 becomes 5 and 4 because 2 goes into both of those. And what we get is 1/2 times 5 times 3, so we get negative 15/4 plus 3/4. Hopefully again gets us negative 3/2. And then we add inside the parentheses, that's the next thing, and negative 15 plus 3 is negative 12, so we have 1/2 times negative 12/4 equals negative 3/2. Then we're going to do some multiplication, and here again we can do some cross-canceling. So we got 2 and 12, right? And so that becomes 6. So we got negative, scroll down, negative 6/4 should equal negative 3/2. And if we simplify both sides, we do in fact get negative 3/2 equals negative 3/2. We did it correctly. So we know that is going to be the correct answer. To solve equations with a binomial in the fraction, multiply both sides by the denominator to get rid of the denominator, and use reverse order of operations again to solve for x, or the variable in the equation. Okay, so here we have a binomial in the numerator, 2x minus 3, and we have a 5 in our denominator. Our first job is to get rid of that 5. And we get rid of that 5, as step 1 says, by multiplying both sides by the denominator. So we're going to multiply both sides by 5. And when we do that, we get, right here, cross those out because they cancel out. We get 2x minus 3 equals 45. And then we can start using reverse order of operations like in step 2. What is this in step 2 up here? To solve for 45. So we're going to get rid of this minus 3 by adding 3 to both sides. And what we get is 2x equals 48. Then we're going to multiply both sides by the reciprocal of 2, which is 1/2. And we get x equals, this cross cancels, this becomes a 24, this becomes a 1, so x equals 24. And so let's try that out. We got 2 times 24 minus 3 all over 5, and that should get us 9. So 2 times 24 is 48 minus 3 over 5 equals 9. Then 48 minus 3 is 45 over 5 should be 9. And we do know that 45 divided by 5 is in fact 9, so we get 9 equals 9. And check. Go ahead and pause the video and try this one out on your own. Alright, what you should have found was that the answer is x equals 1/3, and we get there because we multiply both sides by 2 to get rid of the denominator. That leaves us with negative 3x plus 5 equals 4. Get rid of the 5 by subtracting 5 from both sides. We get negative 3x equals negative 1. Multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the coefficient, so we get negative 1/3 times negative 1, which gets us 1/3. And if we check it, negative 3 times 1/3 is the first thing we do, which gets us negative 1. Negative 1 plus 5 is 4, and 4 divided by 2 is 2, so we get both sides are equal to 2, so we did it correctly.